I'd like to introduce Congressman Pete Sessions. He is a longtime advisor to the America's Future Series, a huge supporter, and because of him, we're able to enjoy this space. He is our host for the venue. He's going to give a few remarks, and then he's going to bring on General Keith Alexander, who is our honorary host, who unfortunately couldn't be with us tonight. But I can't thank General Alexander enough for his support and for lending his name and his gravitas to these proceedings. Here you go, Pete. Thank you so much.
David, thank you very much. And for each of you who are joining us this evening at the United States Capitol, on behalf of members of Congress, we welcome you. Tonight is an opportunity, once again, for America's Future Series to stand up what we believe is an important discussion, debate, and support of men and women of the United States military, the mission that they accomplish, the things which they stand for to protect this great nation 24 hours a day, 365 days a year. The policy that abounds around that is often discussed at these events. The policy, the procedures, the avenues of sharing ideas that are thoughtful, which is why we have so many of our nation's military leaders that join us, David, on a regular basis. Tonight, we're going to welcome General Alexander, but the main part of tonight is to say thank you to those of you who care enough to hire veterans, who do the things that would be necessary to make sure that the men and women who serve, who volunteer, who leave their families, who do the hard things in life, yes, at an early age probably, but still, they do those things. Many times they come back home and they've learned skills that can bring to us, and that is true. But also that this country develops himself with technology to where we teach those people also, and we're all made better because we're together. Tonight, I would like to welcome General Keith Alexander, former Chief of Staff, United States Army, who is a stalwart leader of men and women, not only in peacetime, but also in battle. And I must say, General Alexander, I hate to leave. We did our last votes tonight. We were scheduled to be in, but when you've got 435 members of Congress that don't want to spend the night with each other any more than we have to, big snowstorm is upon us here in Washington, D.C. I well remember December 24th, 1969, as a ninth grader out in Kensington, Maryland, the joy of seeing the snow. I don't share that same joy tonight, trying to get out of here. And I was here in 2010 when we did the Snowmageddon. I don't know what's headed our way, but I do know that tonight we have much to be thankful for. Men and women of our United States military are on duty. They protect us. They care about this great nation, and we do the same with them. So I'm going to just pass this on to General Alexander right now, and as the old saying goes, aloha.
Thank you, Congressman Sessions. Keith, welcome.
Yes, thank you for hosting the team there and for all you and your fellow congressmen and women are doing for our nation. I was there for Snowmageddon. I know what it's like, and now I live in Naples, Florida. So thank you, David, for what you and your entire team are doing to recognize the military and to continue to do those things that Congressman Sessions just talked about. In my opinion, our world is in a global crisis, military-wise. When you look at what's going on in the Middle East, between Israel and Gaza, Iran and all of their terrorist-related networks, what's going on between Iran and Pakistan, what's going on between Ukraine and Russia, and tensions in China, between China, Taiwan, and the South China Sea. Many believe that we'll have a regional war in the Middle East, perhaps this summer, and it's heating up. And so the role that our military plays is hugely important for the future of our nation and our allies. So taking a minute today to recognize some of those companies that really help our military and our nation in this series is hugely important. So what the American Future Series today is going to give is a 5-star award to 2 organizations. Scott McIntyre, CEO for Guidehouse, and General Ray for the business execs for national security of the BENS organization. This is an extraordinary support to our military award for what these 2 outfits do. And I'll tell you, as a military veteran who had the opportunity to serve for 40 years, support from BENS and Guidehouse is hugely important for our nation.
But I want to thank Ken Peterman and the entire fantastic team at Comtech Telecommunications Corporation for their staunch support of the America's Future Series, their dedication to thought leadership, their focus on advanced technologies, putting capabilities in the hands of the warfighter faster. They're really moving the needle. We like to say they're moving at Peterman time because Ken makes things move pretty quick. So, Ken, thank you so much for being here. I'm going to turn the mic over to you. We'll bring up Clint, and then we're going to present some awards. We'll have some photo opportunities and a couple of great conversations. I want to thank Kim Crider for securing Dr. Martell. We're going to have a Medal of Honor recipient, Flo Groberg, and General Allen join us, et cetera. So a great lineup of interesting conversations. Let's kick it off with Ken.
Thank you. So listen, we're transitioning now to the American Future Series 5-star award. This is really important. This is about our young men and women in uniform. This is about when they transition out of that uniform and join the commercial sector. I am in awe of the young men and women in this nation that choose a life of service, that choose a life of going wherever they need to go, whether they politically agree or not, to serve this nation and do what sometimes is the really tough business that falls on us as Americans, okay, the tough global business. So I'm really in awe of that, and I think the companies that support our veterans as they transition out and join the private sector, those companies need to be recognized, those companies need to be rewarded. The recipients in the past of this 5-star award include Jamie Dimon, Ross Perot Sr., Marilyn Houston, Dr. Thomas Kennedy, and of course Jeff Bezos of Amazon. It's given to business leaders and their organizations who support the transition of those veterans in the private sector, both from a philanthropic perspective, but also from a career progression perspective. And that's something to really be proud of. As the past recipient, the most recent past recipient of this award, Amazon and Jeff Bezos, they're represented today by Clint Crosier, Major General retired Clint Crosier, who at Amazon currently leads their entire aerospace and satellite space sector. He's responsible for bringing to both the commercial and the government market cutting-edge solutions in cloud-native technologies to make the world a better place. Before he joined Amazon, he spent 33 years in the Air Force. His most recent post was Director of Planning, giving really birth and being the architect in many ways of the U.S. Space Force. A remarkably challenging job for which I think he's done a remarkable job. Before that, he led GPS, he led SATCOM, he led missile warning systems, he launched Atlas and Titan rockets. He has had an amazing career. So with that, I would like to have the presenter of this 5-star award to step forward, my friend, Clint.
Thank you very much. Good evening, ladies and gentlemen. It is an honor to be here. Thank you, Ken, for that wonderful introduction and all you do, Ken, in support of our men and women in service. Thank you to David Hamilton and America Future Series. I've been involved with the series for a couple of years now, and they just do phenomenal work. Great day today, great evening and reception tonight. It is a real honor for me to be here and present this 5-star award tonight. As was mentioned, Amazon and Jeff Bezos were the recipients last year. And General Ray, my old friend, T-Ray as we used to call him, We served together at Air Force Global Strike Command a few years ago. T-Ray will know sometimes the 4-star gets an invite and can't make it, so it flows to the 3-star who can't make it, so that it flows to the 2-star who winds up supporting the event. Well, Jeff Bezos couldn't make it tonight, and so, as happens, you've got the retired 2-star filling in. It is a real honor for me as a retired military member to present the 5-star award. This is an enormously important and prestigious award because it recognizes those companies who do so much and give so much to support our men and women in uniform, their spouses, and their families. And this is an award that identifies patriotism and selfless service across the business community. It recognizes those business leaders and their organizations who do paramount work in supporting our military and supporting our defense community, not only philanthropically, which is very important, as the award recognizes work to support from a charitable basis our men and women in uniform and community support programs, but also with hiring veterans and career development for veterans and their spouses, which is such an important thing as well. So as a retired military officer, I really appreciate the prestige of the award, and I appreciate what it recognizes. As a member of Amazon, I'm honored to be here to present the award tonight. In tradition with AFS, you have last year's recipient award the awards this year, and I'm honored to be able to do that from the Amazon perspective. I can tell you that Amazon is as bought in to each of those principles as the recipients we're about to identify tonight. I've been a product of Amazon's support of the military and its members, men and women. Day to day, I see it up close and personal, and I'm so thankful for that. In 2021, Amazon committed to hiring 100,000 military members and their spouses, and I'm happy to report that by the end of 2024, I think we're going to be able to get there and hit that goal. So I will just throw that out to all of you. Make a commitment to hiring our men and women in military as they roll out of military and supporting their families. So for a number of reasons, it's an honor for me to be here tonight. But tonight we're presenting the award to our new 2024 recipients, and we are so proud and thankful for the work that our recipients do. The first recipient we're going to identify tonight is Guidehouse. And Guidehouse, we'll ask him to come up in just a moment. Their CEO, Scott McIntyre, is here. Come on up, Scott. Come on up here. Let me just tell you a couple of very quick things about Guidehouse and sort of embarrass Scott in public, if you will, about the work Guidehouse does. Guidehouse has a long history supporting veterans, which we so much appreciate, both hiring and training veterans and their families, as well as supporting and participating in community programs to enhance and improve veteran support programs, so critically needed in our country. Many of the firm's senior leaders are also veterans, which is greatly appreciated. Guidehouse serves U.S. state and local clients across sectors, every federal cabinet level agency, global multilaterals, and Fortune 500 commercial entities. Recently, it was announced that Guidehouse earned the 2024 Military Friendly Employer designation, not once, twice, 3, 4 times, but for the 5th consecutive year. That's worth a round of applause. And Guidehouse is also proud to be named the 2024 Military Spouse-Friendly Employers List, which, again, my wife and I married 39 of my 33 years in the U.S. military. We so appreciate our spouses. So congratulations, Scott and the Guidehouse team. We are honored and proud to provide you the 5-star award tonight for your dedication and service to America's military, its men and women, families, and spouses.
Dave said I had 4 minutes, and I will adhere to that tight timeline. There's a lot you could say, and there's a lot of gratitude I want to express, beginning with AFS and Comtech, and of course to everybody who's here representing the best interests of the best people who serve our country every day. I will just say this. It astonishes me that our not-so-secret sauce of hiring America's veterans and their spouses isn't a chief initiative of every CEO driving it through the organization in every industry around the country. It should be. Hats off to Amazon and AWS for all they do all the time in this capacity and setting bold goals in the furtherance of not just doing the right thing for those who serve us every day, as was said earlier by the Congressman, 24 hours a day, 7 days a week, all the time, anytime, but it is best for business. We're a consulting firm. We measure everything. We carved out of an accounting firm. We measure everything. And the indications in every piece of data we look at is that this cohort of our employee base around the world is among the most energetic, capable, disciplined, and strategic that we have in our entire workforce. And all we can do is redouble our efforts to make that a bigger and bigger percentage of the overall employee base. I challenge every CEO to drive this hard in their organizations, irrespective of industry. We all know it works. We know it works all the time. And we know that there's nothing more important to executing your strategy in any industry or in any organization than reliable talent at all levels. And for that, we are grateful to all of our men and women who serve and will one day work for one of us as they make that career transition into the commercial space. Thank you very much, David.
Again, congratulations to Guidehouse and to Scott McIntyre for that really prestigious recognition. Our second recipient tonight, no less prestigious, is Business Executives for National Security, better known as BENS, and their relatively new CEO, General Tim Ray, is here to accept the award. I have been affiliated and known about BENS for a number of years, and I can tell you as an active duty colonel to 1-star to 2-star, I saw in a very real way the things Ben did to help support on the Hill, the Chamber of Commerce and others to help support national security within the United States. And I think most of us are familiar with BENS work or have benefited directly from it. BENS is a trusted, nonpartisan, nonprofit organization. And for over 40 years, the organization has served as the primary channel through which senior American business leaders contribute pro bono, which is so appreciated, their special experience and talent to the government's national security agencies. BENS members are united in the belief that private sector expertise can and does and should assist the national security enterprise to ensure that the United States remains secure. And that is so very appreciated. My boss, the CEO of AWS, Adam Silipsky, is a member of BENS. My boss's boss, Jeff Bezos, is a member of BENS, executive chairman of Amazon. And without further ado, General Tim Ray, we are so honored to have you here tonight and present this award to BENS.
All right, everybody hear me okay? Thanks to the American Future Series for recognizing us for this particular award. It's an absolute honor. It represents so many things that we identify with: commitment to excellence, the integrity, and the absolute dedication to the security of our nation and our way of life. So we're proud to be thought of in that vein, and I would be really remiss if I stood up here tonight and didn't brag on the most important part of our team. And so my time in the military, you've heard the sentiment here, and I would echo it absolutely about our military members, certainly their families, very special. But my time now on the other side, and I play that go-between between the business world and the government. And I'm going to tell you, we have phenomenal people on this side too. It is breathtaking to see the talent. So if I stood here and took the award and didn't bring those people to the forefront of the conversation, I would be completely off the mark. But in the short time I've been in the seat, it's just been incredible to see their perspectives, their talent. And what I like to tell, along with what Clint was saying, is when I talk to my military friends, there's 3 rules of BENS. We're free, we're nonpartisan, and the most important part is we're free. And so, you know, the ability to get in the room without an agenda, without partisanship, to really get to the heart of the matter, to talk about the contours of the problems and bring insights to our senior leaders across the military, even if it's to expand their perspective on how to think about it, I call that success. So I've got a great team, and I'm very proud to say, you know, we're on that one. So it now falls on me, and I think probably the most important part, and if you're smart, you'd realize this is the real reason to come here, not to listen to us. but it falls on me to introduce our speakers here for the panel. And they messed with me, and they told me that I was going to be basically the moderator, which no one prepared me to do, so it was going to get interesting. But here we go. Two amazing Americans. One I've only gotten to know recently, but one I've worked with in the past. General John Allen, a graduate of the Naval Academy. We'll talk about the Commander-in-Chief's Trophy later, sir, but yep. A tremendous officer and leader. He's been the lead in Afghanistan, where I work for him too. He's been the special envoy about the Americans and the coalition dealing with ISIL. And beyond his military service, his commitment to diplomacy and global leadership just continues to make a profound impact on the world stage. And if you're going to have a great forum and you put a 4-star on the stage, the only way you can beat that is to have a Medal of Honor recipient. And that's certainly what we've done tonight with Flo Groberg. His story is tremendous, extraordinary bravery. Born in Poissy, France, Flo became a naturalized citizen in 2001. Driven by a very deep sense of duty and love for the United States, he's not only a Medal of Honor recipient, but a BENS member. Did I say he's a BENS member? He's a BENS member. And an individual has dedicated himself to serving his fellow veterans in every post-service civilian role he's undertaken. His journey is a testament to the indomitable spirit that we have. I do want to take just one quick second to brag on General Allen and a lesson that I never really got to thank him for until tonight, but as a young 1-star working for him in Afghanistan, I made one of the toughest decisions of my military career, completely unpopular. Nobody appreciated it, but when it came down to backing your people, General Allen was absolutely in my corner, and he taught a young 1-star about making tough calls and having top cover from the top, from the very top. And so that just really served me incredibly well as a 3- and 4-star later in life when I saw people making the right steps. So personal thanks to you for your leadership and what you did for me at one of the toughest times in my professional career. So I'll publicly say thank you. So at this point, I will hand it over to the moderator and say, welcome to the stage, you two great Americans.
That's very nice. Sir? Thank you, General. That was very nice. We've got about 15 minutes, and I know that everybody assembled here this evening could listen to these two gentlemen for hours and be completely enthralled. But in the spirit of the evening, we are both unrehearsed, fair enough, completely, unrehearsed, and yet we're going to be on point. And the point is military transition. We've got two distinguished leaders who've made very different career paths within the military, and their transitions have been very different, and one more longitudinal than the other, and have both blazed big trails in the wake of their service to our country. So I'm going to do less talking and ask a couple of questions to get you guys spun up. I'll start with you, John, but Flo, please follow. John, talking to this group, this isn't really our audience. Our audience is when this gets out of this room and others can be inspired by what you guys have to say and hopefully motivated to take some big actions to do more for the veteran community and the spouses community. What would you say, John, were some of the big challenges that you had when you rolled out of the military the first time and then went back in and then came out again? And what was that like for a senior leader like you?
Well, Scott, as you remember, first, congratulations to you and to General Ray. Congratulations to Guidehouse and to BENS. It's wonderful work that you have done on behalf of our veterans, and we just can't thank you all enough. And it's great to be on the forum with you this evening. General Ray and Flo and I all served together at the same time in Afghanistan, so it was a great honor to be with you again today and to see General Ray, and he managed to overcome my leadership example, evidently, because he made 4 stars. I think one of the greatest challenges that I experienced coming out was seeing the reality of how many of our young troops were struggling as they were coming out of the service. I took over the war in Afghanistan at the 10-year point, so we had obviously been there a long time. I had it for almost 2 years, and then the war went on for a number of years after that. And unlike any other country in the world, we really do take care of our veterans, but we can always do more. And I was enormously pleased to see what civil society is doing on behalf of our veterans. Because sometimes the Veterans Care, the VA, it's just completely bewildering, and many of our veterans are struggling to find just guidance. They're not asking for handouts, they're not asking for gifts, they're just asking for guidance on how first they can take care of their families, how they can have a chance in life after service in the military, often a lot of combat service. And civil society has stepped up in many respects to help on this. The nonprofits, there are many of them out there. Highport is here tonight. They're doing great work on transition. But also the private sector. I hope that someone who captured your words tonight about the private sector can get that out verbatim. And that is, look, when you hire a veteran, you're going to get somebody who has committed themselves to something bigger than themselves, which is important for organizations. You've hired someone who swore to support and defend the Constitution of the United States, so they are people who are committed to the rule of law. They are folks who, in that oath, were prepared to die for something. I mean, their capacity to understand how to be committed is unambiguous. And so when you hire a veteran, and all CEOs, frankly, should be deeply committed to this, you are supercharging your organizations. Because those veterans understand commitment, they understand integrity and honor, they have been under stress, they've probably been in combat or might have been in combat, they bring that into the room, it's unbelievable. And so we just can't do enough for those young veterans who are coming out every single day. So when I came out, I was worried about that. And I joined the board and have helped a number of nonprofits. Day after tomorrow, for example, somebody else we served with together, I'm handing the keys to a new home to a Marine corporal who stepped on a IED, lost both of his legs in Afghanistan. I am on the board of an organization called Homes for Our Troops. Applaud them. Because these kids deserve the kind of support that we can give them. And that house is theirs forever on Saturday morning. But that's the kind of thing that civil society has done, and what you have done and what BENS has done for our veterans is exactly what all CEOs and the private sector should be doing. We can't do enough. Sorry it takes so long.
No, that's perfect, sir. And it's really hard to piggyback off your outstanding but also accurate comments. I'll give you more of a personal perspective. Obviously, I was injured on August 8, 2012. I had my 2, 5, and 10-year plans were all in the military. I didn't have a backup plan as a civilian. And so when that happened, it's just a reality check. It becomes a crisis identity problem because you no longer can really self-identify in terms of what you mean to your own mission because you don't understand what that mission is. So it took a while for me to really get back on my feet and understand what my next passion and mission would be. I was lucky. I was lucky because I was in a controlled environment. I was at Walter Reed Hospital. I had everything around me, and I had time. All I was asked to do was recover. And so during that period of time, I knew the one thing that I should definitely do is go back to school and get my master's degree, take advantage of that time. And second, I needed a network, right? Because nothing that you do in the military is alone. You always have a team. From day one, the day you go to MEPS, everything, you do it, a bunch of group of people, whether it's a crab walk or raising your right hand and taking an oath, or getting on that bus and going to basic training, or boot camp, whatever you call it. And so I knew that I couldn't do it alone. And so for me, it's kind of funny in small world, on plan, the individual that brought me back onto sort of my saddle when it came down to my career is Jared Shepard. Jared, will you raise your hand? So Jared is the epitome of what America is in terms of warfighters. He had a GED, graduated with a GED, went back and got some of his schooling, went into the Army, was an infantryman, was a sniper, decided, you know what, I got to get a little smarter here, went into the IT side. General Odierno, bless his heart and soul, saw talent there and challenged Jared to get out of the Army and said, you're so bright and you have an understanding of what's going on in our infrastructure here in Iraq, why don't you start your own company? So he started Intelligent Ways. Some of you probably heard that company. Incredible success. Followed on, now owns Hypori, one of the most incredible BYOD solution, the best BYOD solution, I'll tell you that right now, on the market for our warfighters. Guess what? He also started his nonprofit, and his nonprofit called Warriors Ethos got me and other folks in 2012, 2013 through some of the hardest times of our lives. So my essence is I lost my mission on August 8, 2012, and I needed help to get me back on the path to success. I knew I couldn't do it alone, so I needed my network. And one last thing I'll say is, it's kind of funny sometimes that once you wear the uniform and you serve, you never stop. And Jared is a really good example of that. And not just, by the way, it's not just Jared. It's a whole team of folks out there that helped us. And they never stop. And they want to, pass it forward. They want to push you to success. And so to me, that's something that I don't take for granted. It's gave me a reason for the rest of my life to do a little bit more for others.
Thank you, Floyd. That was great. Yeah. It's interesting, you described a very controlled environment at Walter Reed, and I think you've taken appreciation for that controlled environment. Not every veteran separating under even the best of conditions has that kind of controlled environment to make it more difficult for some people. But it's interesting how heavily you indexed on Jared. Not everybody is a Jared either, but you started by talking about your network and building a network. And it's something that we can reach out, corporations and other organizations can reach out into the communities who serve veterans to help build a network into the corporate world where one doesn't exist. You were able to use a friendship or relationship, somebody you respected and worked with and for in the past. Not everybody has that either. And that bridge building can be very
Time
important.
out. I didn't know Jared.
Oh, you didn't know
No. Jared, I met Jared because Jared volunteered.
Well, you strongly implied you knew Jared.
Oh, well, I know him now. Yeah, my apologies. But no, he made himself, he got himself into Walter Reed, understanding this is where I need to go help these folks, obviously other places. But I was lucky enough to be in that controlled environment where I had access versus exactly what you're talking about. A lot of my peers and friends and soldiers that served under me do not have that access, and they're completely lost.
And we all know, the network is incredibly important. I think those of us who are in networks sometimes don't appreciate the power and the impact that expanding that network could have to people who need to be oriented. That's wonderful. John, let me ask you this. If you were you've given me a lot of advice over the years. I've taken a lot of advice and counsel from you. What would you tell me and other CEOs who really already value the impact that veterans can have on the organization? But what advice would you still give us to expand our efforts and to be more effective at attracting and retaining our nation's top talent?
I have been in the last several years asked periodically to come into companies and take a look at them, either to offer advice on how to do better or to offer advice on how to stop the free fall. And invariably, my number one piece of advice is whatever you're doing that's right, in your case, is a function of leadership. And the stronger the leadership across the board in a corporation, the better it's going to do. When I go to a company that's in trouble, I can tell you almost immediately walking through the door without talking to anybody, I'm going to find a major leadership problem. Now, I raise that because when you hire an NCO, a retired NCO or a former NCO or a wounded NCO or a petty officer, when you hire them, you get enormous experience in leadership. You just can't pay enough for that. This is one of the, I think, the great secrets of hiring veterans, beyond the technical skills you often get with veterans. The thing that you always get with a veteran is both an inherent leadership that they bring to the table, but a willingness and an interest in doing better, improving themselves, and very importantly, leading those around them. So that that group that they touch within the organization, that group is reinforced, that group is spiraled upward, that group is spiritually energized. And it's self-evident to you because of what you have done with Guidehouse. It's self-evident to Guidehouse. It's just not self-evident widely enough in the country that when I go to an organization or an organization asks for help, the problem is almost always, whether it's a procedural problem or an organizational problem or the discipline of processes, et cetera, it's always leadership in some form or another. And when you hire the veterans, they bring that through the door automatically. And you just can't pay enough for that.
I'm sensitive to the fact that we have 3 minutes. I have one more question. I'm directing it to Flo. When you were making your transition, what did you expect? What were you looking for in making that transition? Had you specified to a great degree the type of job, the type of role, and the connection of that role and job back to your military discipline and expertise? Or were you wide open? What was sort of framing your thoughts in making this big transition?
Great question. I had no idea. I just wanted to do something I was passionate about, and that was to serve my nation at the time. And so with that, I met with a lot of people. I had a lot of conversations, and I was lucky. I've been, throughout my life, I've been blessed and lucky that I was asked to go to a Nowruz dinner, and the individual I sat next to was Mr. Shed, who was number 2 at DIA. After that evening, he recruited me into the agency, and I went back into the clandestine. Well, I went into the clandestine side, and I found passion again until President Obama put the medal around my neck. And General Stewart, bless his heart and soul, told me you can't be in the clandestine sector of your Wikipedia page. I disagreed. I thought it was a really good opportunity, a great top cover, but you know, I was above my pay grade. But reality was I had to find the next passion again. And here's the thing. Here's what I'll say since we're running out of time. It's fascinating. I'm a criminal justice major degree at University of Maryland. I'm an immigrant. I didn't speak this language until I was 12 years old. And I worked in the Army. I worked with one of the agencies. I was a spokesperson on LinkedIn. I was a chief of staff for the CEO of Boeing Commercial Airplanes. I ran a $5 billion business on the commercial side for Boeing. And I went into Azure Government Cloud and ran some of their biggest mission settings, and with my friends like Vishal here. And now I'm in the private equity side, and I get to work with unbelievable companies like Big Bear that's doing some really amazing work in the AI/ML side of the house, and they're here with Greg Goldwater. You should definitely talk to that guy. And the reason I've been able to do all that is because of the foundation that I learned in the mountains of Afghanistan in 2009, 2010. The fact that I was able and lucky enough to be given the right and the opportunity to lead men and women in combat, and I'll never forget looking into their eyes, having to make decisions. The number one problem that I see in corporate America is the fact that people are afraid to make decisions. They are afraid of the consequences, and they don't make decisions. They want others to do it. I wasn't afforded that ability in combat. Whether or not we come home or not, we got to make decisions. And I took those lessons, teamwork, respect, integrity, doing the hard work when no one's watching, but also being a decision maker and leading with guts and courage, and then enduring the consequences of those actions, learning from it and becoming better into corporate America. And I've been able to infiltrate, that's the way I call it, and so some of the top companies in the world. Not because I'm smarter or a harder worker than anybody else, it's just because I learned that I'm a teammate and I can't win alone. That's what you get with veterans. If you open up your door, you give them an opportunity to succeed, you provide them with the right tools and resources inside your organization, and you trust them when things get tough, you're going to win. Because they're not going to stay on the ground when they get knocked down. That's why this is the greatest country in the world, because of our people. So we need to take advantage of that in our organizations, in our governments, in our educational system, and hire and provide guidance, but also opportunity for leadership to more of our veterans. You just won't be disappointed.
Let's bottle that up. Gentlemen, on behalf of everyone here, thank you very much. And thank you, colleagues, for joining us this evening.
Thank you, sir. Thank you. That was fantastic. So in true military fashion, we're on time. And I like to say, if you want to change your culture, if you're tired of people who can't get to work until they've had their second latte, hire a veteran. They'll show up on time. They'll stay to the end. They'll worry about the mission. They won't complain. They might a little bit, but only if you're not doing what needs to be done. That's what they'll complain about, right? Not their own personal situation. So you want to change your culture? Hire a veteran, right? So with that, I would like to bring up another great friend of mine, a hero of mine, who's done great work for the America's Future Series and served our military brilliantly. She was the Chief Technology Officer of the Space Force and has done many other things with the Air Force. Major General Kim Crider. She is going to introduce Dr. Craig Martell for us, and he's going to have an interesting chat with you. He's going to ask you some questions, so you have to participate, okay? All right. Major General?
Thank you, David. Thank you so much, America's Future Series, for this fabulous evening. It is my great honor to introduce to you tonight Dr. Craig Martell. Dr. Martell is the Department of Defense Chief Digital and Artificial Intelligence Officer, reporting to the Deputy Secretary of Defense. His appointment to CDO brings extensive experience both from the government and from industry in artificial intelligence and machine learning. Since the CDAO was established just a little over a year, 2 years ago, I guess, February 2022, Dr. Martell and his team have driven the acceleration of DoD's adoption of data, analytics, and AI to generate decision advantage, really through a number of important high-value policy, infrastructure, and multi-partner initiatives, including the recently announced AI battle labs in EUCOM and INDOPACOM. Now, myself, as someone who's been in the digital and AI business for a while, I was the first Air Force Chief Data Officer when we were just a little tiny snowball trying to get things started in the DoD. I can tell you, from my vantage point, under Dr. Martell's leadership, he's just not moving the needle. He is moving the mountain and creating an avalanche of opportunity to take the department forward like never before in the development, deployment, and scaling of digital and AI solutions for the warfighter. Please join me in welcoming Dr. Martell.
Can you all hear me okay? Yeah, that sounds good. Let me just turn this thing around real quick. To answer the question you're all asking, it was a slight motorcycle mishap. And for those of you who do ride, I recommend every one of you get an airbag vest. I was wearing an airbag underneath my leather jacket, and it had some AI in it. It had accelerometers, so if you tumble, the airbag goes off, and it had gyroscopes, so if you lean, like I did, too far, the airbag goes off. So it poofed up all around my body, and it came up my neck to keep my underneath my helmet to keep my head from moving. And so when I landed, I don't know if anybody's ever gone down before, I thought, oh, that's not too bad. It kind of feels like a mattress. And then I hit my hip, and I thought, oh, that's what that feels like. And then finally, the bike fell on my foot, and that's where we're at. But when I was in the emergency room, all of the emergency room staff was shocked that there was no damage up here. So if you do ride, get an airbag. You can clap for that if you want, but it has not. I just had an accident, so. Okay, and I'm now quite addicted to this basket, so I think I might stick with this scooter even after my leg gets better. Look, I have a lot of things we can talk about, and I know I only have 20 minutes, and I always go over, so someone's going to have to make sure that I don't spend too much time. But let me ask a question. Since I'm the Chief Digital and AI Officer, what's AI? Thank you very much. I would like a non-snide answer. Okay, what's artificial intelligence? I'm serious. I think this is an extremely important question because you were first up, just 1 second. We're very high in the AI hype cycle, and as a non-young man, I've seen this AI hype cycle happen a lot, and so I think it's really important that we characterize this. So, brave person in the back, what's AI? Well, my wife would tell me that was her. Because I couldn't imagine the joy that she would bring to me, I think. I'm very happily married, by the way. Okay, that's good. Anybody else?
Kind of training processors to recognize patterns and attempted developing a neural network.
That's good. That's good. I don't think the neural network is necessary. The neural network is just what's been most recently successful. Right? But training a system to recognize patterns, that's good. Anybody else? You guys didn't know you were going to school, did you? Machine-driven insights. I wish that were true. But the phrase insights sort of presupposes a kind of intelligence that I just don't think is there. Do I need to back up? Is that what that? Yeah, is that what it is? Okay, we had someone back there.
Yeah, I think it's the ability to use CPU, digital processing power to make analytics decisions outside of the traditional math and computational. It's allowing the computational system to do something a little bit beyond what is a simple math problem.
Yeah, I can see why you think that. I actually think that's exactly not true. No, I don't mean that to be insulting. I want us to work through this together. Let me tell you what I think AI is. Unless anybody else had another thing they wanted to chime. One more time. I think that one's too hard to unpack because I'm not quite sure what you mean by intelligence there. I would say that artificial intelligence, well, firstly, artificial intelligence is a buzz phrase that was invented by John McCarthy in the 50s specifically to get funding from the Department of Defense. So the whole purpose of the phrase was to get funding from the Department of Defense. And then that phrase, the research that was funded by it did not bear fruit. So we entered what was called the first AI winter. And where snow was money, where snow was not money. So where warmth was money, and we ended up getting cold. And so then we changed the term. We as a field changed the term. We have things like computer vision. We called it computer vision because it wasn't AI. And we called it machine learning because it wasn't AI. So if someone asks you the question, what's the difference between AI and ML? Nothing. There is no difference. AI is a buzz phrase that comes and goes. Machine learning is a type of AI that has happened to be really successful of late. So I'm now going to tell you my definition of machine learning. Machine learning, and therefore AI, is statistics at scale. Statistics at scale. What you do with how you build an artificial intelligence system is count the past to predict the future. You count things in the past. Normally I swear at that point, and I don't say things. I say something that starts with S, but we have cameras. So you count things in the past, and you use the things that you've counted in the past to predict the future. That's it. That's all it is. So anybody know what linear regression is? Did anybody learn linear regression? Linear regression is AI. You count things in the past. You have prior examples of X, Y pairs in the past, and you use it to create a line, and then you use that line to predict the future. Artificial intelligence is simply statistics at scale. Okay, so what's changed? Why has artificial intelligence suddenly started working so well? I told you it's going to be interactive, guys. Come on. Computing capacity. Okay, what part of computing capacity has increased? Mathematical, yes, but particularly, does anybody know what's the computing aspects that have gotten really good in the last 20 years? Graphics processing units. The CPUs have gotten good as well, but they still have fundamental bottlenecks in them that graphical processing units overcame. So the reason NVIDIA is worth as much as they're worth, and wow, are they worth a lot, is because NVIDIA was building video cards. Video cards do things like rotate geometric objects in space so you can shoot at them, right? It turns out those rotations of geometrical objects are just by doing something called vector mathematics, and it turned out that vector mathematics is exactly what you need to do deep neural nets. So there was this convergence of a particular type of computational power. If you go out to the NSA, there's a computing museum in the front of NSA, and if you go to that computing museum, you'll see something called the thinking machine. It was a machine done in the 80s, and it's really huge and kind of cool looking, and it did vector processing. So the idea of doing vector processing in order to do AI has been around for a really long time. We just couldn't get it to be fast enough. And so now vector processing is really fast, right? And ironically, it's because people were playing video games where they wanted to shoot things. And that convergence was number one thing that was really helpful in building out AI. What's the number two thing that's been really helpful in making AI more successful? Not yet. We hope it will be, but as of now, it hasn't done that much. Okay, we're going to talk about large language models in a second. The answer is what Kim said, it's data. So now we have massive computing power on the one hand, and we have massive amounts of data. Where did we get that? It's very important because the next question is, what's the military applications of all of this? So let me ask you this question. Where did we get that massive amount of data? It didn't fall out of the sky. It's not manna from heaven. Where did we get it? People. Most importantly, every time you turn on your phone and start up an app, you have signed away all of your data to that app. So the massive app companies, most of whom are our partners and I love, the Microsofts, the Googles, the Amazons of the world, they gather massive amounts of data because you interact with their system. This is really important. So now we have massive amounts of data because we love our phones and we love to buy things online. And we have massive computing power because we wanted to play video games. These two things together allowed the same algorithms that were designed in the 80s and did not work. So the fundamental algorithm is gradient descent. Gradient descent and backpropagation was invented in like 86 or 87. That worked only so well because there wasn't enough computational power and there wasn't enough data. But now the same algorithms with some new rearrangements of architectural things like transformers and things, those are all real. But fundamentally, the same algorithms are being applied today just at a massive scale. So the really fundamental difference in this AI explosion, because it's finally starting to really work, this AI explosion is data and computational power. Okay, great. So that gets us to my next question. What are the military applications? If it's the case that we have the computational power, we know we have the computational power because my colleague John Sherman negotiated the government cloud contract, Joint Government Cloud Capacity? JWCC, Joint Warfighter Cloud Capacity. Thank you so much. And that means any member of the Department of Defense can actually go from any one of the four providers, Google, Amazon, Microsoft, and Oracle, and buy cloud computing, and we could scale up as many GPUs as we need. So we have the computational capacity. What don't we have? We don't have the data. No, we have the infrastructure because we can buy it from JWCC. We have the algorithms. We don't have the data. Okay, what data do we need? Well, can we use data from a non-military use case and apply that to a military use case? I don't know. That is an experimental question. So, for example, when a car drives itself and it recognizes a stop sign and it recognizes a red light and it recognizes the lines in the road, it would be great if we could just take that algorithm, which was trained on data where human beings in the United States in particular are saying this is a stop sign, this is a car, this is a pedestrian, this is a motorcycle with broken foot, right? So it tells the car all this information, the model learns what those things are, and then you try it in the car and it works. Okay, so now take that same model and put it in the Ukraine. Great, it's driving fine. So the stop signs look a little different. The speed limit signs look a little different. There are squiggles in the road that we don't have here, but that's okay. You can train the system on those small differences. So now we've transferred US automated driving to Ukrainian automated driving. Then a war happens. What happens to the environment in the Ukraine when a war happens? It changes drastically. So can the model trained on nice, stable, non-war fought roads in the United States work just translated automatically to that Ukrainian situation? No, not at all. Because the data, remember, it's statistics at scale. You train on the past and you use it to predict the future. Well, what does that presuppose? That presupposes that the deployed situation looks like the past. Well, that's great, except in a war, how often does the deployed situation look like just before the war? Kind of never, right? The whole thing about a war is the deployed situation gets blown up, right? So it's really important for us to think about this what's the data that we need as warfighters in order to be able to generate the AI value? So so I'm going to just pause there for any questions. Are there any questions? Yep. Yeah, that's great. So how do you extrapolate it? You don't extrapolate it. You actually have to build human machine pairing situations where your soldiers or your airmen or your guardians or your Marines are constantly relabeling the data for you, are constantly gathering the data and telling the system how the world has changed. Will that work? Is that guaranteed to work? No. Unfortunately, whether or not an AI solution works in a particular scenario is completely an experimental question. Synthetic data. Okay, so synthetic data is the holy grail, right? Because if data is necessary in order to train an AI system, why can't we get another AI system to generate the data to train the AI system? Well, number one, I stated it that way on purpose so you can see that it's believing in magic, right? It's believing in magic. But secondly, it's very, 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 very rare that we have a sufficiently good model of the world that we can generate synthetic data. So let me say, let's say your goal is to distinguish school buses, and anybody who's a warfighter, just extrapolate this to some warfighting scenario. But you want to differentiate school buses from trucks. There are plenty of warfighting scenarios that you can imagine there. Okay, great. So what a human being goes, school bus, truck, school bus, truck, school bus, school bus, school bus, truck, truck, truck. A human being labels that. Okay, now let's build a system that will do that labeling for us. So now we have a magical system that can say school bus, truck, school bus, truck. If we had that system, we don't need the machine learning in the first place because we already have a system that can differentiate school buses from trucks. So the promise of synthetic data is almost the promise of the problem already being solved, right? And so there is no bootstrapping here. Now, there are some very rare scenarios. If you have a digital twin that is sufficiently good at modeling the world, there are some scenarios under which you can create synthetic data, but they're very, very narrow. There's anybody from Microsoft here? Anybody who worked at Microsoft? There you go. There you go. Some Microsoft folks in the back. All right. Captain, that's right. I forgot you were at Microsoft. Okay, so there was something called the Xbox 360. That was 2 game consoles ago, and it had something called the Kinect. And the Kinect would track you in your room, and you could like play tennis or something with the game. Okay, that was trained with synthetic data. And that was trained with synthetic data because we have an excellent model of human mechanics. We just don't have a good model of perceiving humans. So we were able to use the model of human mechanics to generate fake perceptions that the system could then learn from. But that's a very rare situation where the generation we have a great model of, but the perception we have a bad model of. So it's really under only those conditions or analogous conditions where something like that can work. Another one is, we're only starting to relaunch wind tunnels. And the reason we're starting to relaunch wind tunnels is for hypersonic. 5 minutes? Okay. We're only starting to relaunch wind tunnels for hypersonics. But before hypersonics, all the wind tunnels were closed down. And those wind tunnels were all closed down because we have an amazingly good physics of the fluid dynamics of airflow, right? And that amazingly good physics of the fluid dynamics of airflow over these control surfaces allowed us to artificially generate the data we needed to build planes. Right? So there are some situations under which synthetic data is useful, but it presupposes a really high fidelity model of the world. And usually if you have a high fidelity model of the world, you don't need the machine learning because you have a high fidelity model of the world already. Okay. I guess I'm almost out of time here, but any other questions? Okay, so what are we doing at the CDAO to address this? We are primarily focusing on not AI. Why are we not primarily focusing on AI? Because our industrial partners have nailed it. We can buy from our industrial partners almost all the AI we need because most of our industrial partners can engage with us at a highly classified level. Okay? What we are focusing on is getting the data right. How do we get the Department of Defense to have clean, discoverable, and accessible data that is owned as a product, not as an asset? I'll explain that in a second. We want data to be a product, not an asset, so that if you needed a vendor to build an AI app for you, that data is available, is discoverable, clean, and accessible. So what do I mean by that? Just one last thought, because I know I'm out of time. My team's very good. One last thought. What do I mean by data as a product? If you say data as an asset, I think that's slightly misleading. Now, my boss signed out a bunch of maxims, one of which is data as an asset. So far be it from me to contradict her, since she's the Deputy Secretary of Defense. However, data as an asset is slightly misleading because an asset, number one, is fungible. It's interchangeable with other assets. That is not true with data. And number two, an asset is something you hoard away because it has inherent value. Data does not have inherent value. Data only has value the degree to which it is used. So if we treat data as a product, that starts to motivate the owners of the data to be promoted the more people that use it. Not the more you gather. You gather a bunch of data and put it in a vault. I don't care how much there is. It's useless. Data that's used by customers to solve warfighter problems, that increases the value of your data. So we're working really heavily with building out best practices and tools so that the department as a whole can start thinking about data as a product. So that's where we're focusing most of our energy. We have a lot of AI things that we're doing. We have a lot of data analytics things that we're doing. But really, the bottom of our hierarchy of needs is to build high-quality, discoverable, and accessible data, because only then can we get to the AI that we need to do. Okay, thanks so much for your time.
We have some Microsoft people in here, Vishal. So we need Sam Altman to join Dr. Martell. I have Mark Cuban lined up and Seth Hicks.
Let's go.
We need you guys to talk about this, et cetera, right?
I have a lot of opinions that Sam will disagree with.
That's okay. It'll be a fiery discussion, right? It'll be. Vishal, so you're going to arrange this for us, right? You got this handled, right? Mark Cuban's already agreed. Sam agreed, but we just can't find a date. We got to put him with Hicks and this guy right here, and we're going to have a good conversation, right? It's going to go.
I'm happy to have the conversation. Again, I'm pretty sure Sam's going to disagree.
All right. Well, we'll be respectful, right?
Well, I won't be, but everybody else will be.
That's it. Okay.
That's great.
Thank you so much, sir. Thank you, doctor. Appreciate it.
Thank you, everybody.
Thank you, everyone. Thank you, Comtech. Thank you, BENS. Thank you, the LBJ School today. Thank you, Kim. Harry Radigi, the group that's here. You're fantastic. We're going to do this again. We're at South by Southwest. If you want to speak, moderate, host, give me a call. I'm David Hamilton. Thank you so much for coming.